Hopefully he will be back with me tomorrow. I'm Ron Cook talking sports with you. Pleased to be joined now on the Nemacolin Fan Hotline by Pirates announcer Greg Brown, who had a front row seat last night for Mike Lange night at the PPG Paints Arena. Greg obviously going back with Mike a long, long way. Good friends, and he and Steve Blass were invited into the booth with Mike last night. Greg, thank you for taking the time, and I can only imagine how much fun that must have been for you last night.
It was, Ronnie. He was tremendous. He's a tremendous human being, of course. You know him as well as I do. So many people have developed relationships with him over the years. He's just a special guy, and we were just thrilled, honored, really, to be with him.
What was it like, front row?
Well, I mean, he's struggling a little bit health-wise, so he kind of fought through it. He's got some legend. I know you talked to him. You had the story about him today, a piece in the PG that explained it well. That he's looking to get better, and he's got a little bit of some pain in his legs. So he was a trooper though to fight through it. And it was just great to be there. When to sit next to him when he orchestrated the crowd. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
At first I didn't know. He actually wanted Steve and me to be sitting there with them. He knew that the scoreboard was going to be shooting him, and so he wanted us to be seated there to kind of participate. But we tried to step back and not take any of the spotlight. But we were sitting there, obviously close to him, and when he started to motion his arms in a downward motion, and the crowd suddenly almost went completely quiet. I thought, wow, he could see that they're about to face off, and he said he figured, okay, that it's time now to let the game resume. But then he brought his arms back up, and in unison, he was like conducting he was like Arthur Fiedler. He was conducting the Pops Orchestra, and they went along with him, and it was brilliant. And when he kind of signed, he pointed to his eye, and then he made the heart on his chest, and then he pointed to you, the fans, kind of signing "I love you." They went crazy. Just, that's what makes him so special. He gets it. I was talking to Rob King, who's going to be doing a piece down the road about Mike in a few weeks. We did that yesterday afternoon, sat down and chatted, and I said, what fascinates me about Mike over the years is how he has been fascinated by performers, and in particular, of course, he's a blues lover, so he goes and he actually has traveled over the years to see some of the great blues singers and bands in the country. But he is fascinated by, in particular, Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. And many years ago, I got into a discussion one night. The Stones were playing the next night at the Igloo, and we're sitting at a pub with a couple other people, and he and I got into a debate about who's better, the Stones or the Beatles, and for my money, the Beatles. I talked about how they wrote those songs, and then, it's not about performing, but with the Stones, it's all about Mick Jagger performing, and he vehemently disagreed, and he said, you gotta go watch him. You gotta watch him. How he just owns the crowd. So he basically forced me to go to that concert many, many years ago just to watch Mick Jagger, and I thought that kind of really told me all I needed to know about Mike and his genius. And last night, it kind of came all together. He had the crowd almost literally in his hands.
And he's done that for 46 years, Greg. And I know there were some interesting people that stopped by the booth. I saw one of his sayings was, "Make me a milkshake, Malkin." And guess who showed up with a milkshake last night, right, Evgeny Malkin?
The Penguins could not have done it any better. It was just absolutely the placards that they handed out. Each one had a different saying. So you could have gone with 10 buddies that had 10 different placards of his sayings. That was brilliant. Thank you, Mike. And then to orchestrate having Gino come in there with that milkshake. I mean, Kevin Acklin was in the suite with us. Mark Turley, they were just so kind and first class. And yeah, Gino stopped in and said something about, I know you'd like a beer, but this is a milkshake. And said, I love you, we love you, you've been great. And it was just, as I said, it was just first class, brilliant. Then later, Marios came in. Dave Morehouse came in to hand deliver a gift and shake his hand and thank him. Iceberg stopped by. It was just they did everything with such class, and it was a perfect night for him.
We're talking to Pirates announcer Greg Brown about Mike Lange night last night at the arena. Greg and Steve Blass shared the evening with Mike Lange. Greg, this town is unbelievable when it comes to its announcers, and I know you feel the love too. And you knew Bob Prince and obviously Myron Cope and Lange. I mean, it's unbelievable how this town just reaches out and just wraps its arms around you guys.
It's funny, Cookie, and he was not referring to me. Don't get me wrong. But David Morehouse, when Mario was talking to Mike and handing him a package, a gift bag, and they were chatting for a while, I was standing next to David, and he said, think about this kind of relatively small town of Pittsburgh and how lucky we are with our sports teams, but with our announcers. And I thought, man, isn't that the truth? I mean, some of the biggest markets in the country over the last 120 years could not boast the list of iconic broadcast figures we have had, starting with Mike and going back to the Gunner. And as Mike pointed out, Rosie Rosewell, who was Prince's first partner, and came up with some crazy sayings of his own. The old Dipsy Doodle. He would talk about a showman. He would have Bob Prince stand on a chair in the booth with a pie pan full of nuts and bolts so that he could go along with his saying, "Open the window, Aunt Minnie," when a ball was hit deep that was headed over the fence. And then the pie pan would hit the floor, and it would sound like the glass breaking, and he would say, "Oops, she never made it." In other words, she was supposed to run up the stairs and open the window so it wouldn't break the glass. But so those are just the baseball guys. And Lanny Fratteri, the years that Lanny put in, and Steve Blass. That's just the baseball guys. So you're right. We are incredibly fortunate. Obviously Myron Cope and Bill Hillgrove still going strong, and just all the guys they've had. Even guys, Cookie, that I don't think get the attention they deserve. You remember Ray Goss?
Long-time Duquesne voice, absolutely.
I mean, Ray Goss is as good as it gets calling basketball. Chris Shovlin, guys around that don't get necessarily the attention because they're not broadcasting a major sport. But I thought David Morehouse hit the nail on the head there.
Greg, before I let you go, I want you to tell the story 35 years ago, what Mike Lange did for you and what it meant just for you as a young guy coming up and what it meant to your career.
Well, yeah, first of all, it meant everything to me, and I still shake my head thinking about it, that someone could be as unselfish and as caring and as giving, which describes Michael. But here I am, I'm like a 24-year-old kid, no play-by-play experience whatsoever. He and Steve Blass were doing cable games on KBL, and they might have done 40 or 50 games a year, and I happened to be doing the pre- and post-game that year, interviews, and an occasional in-game hit, kind of the early Robbie Mikowski of the day, Robbie and Mikowski of the day. And but Mike knew my ultimate dream was to be a play-by-play guy. And early in the year, he said something to me like, hey kid, we've got a doubleheader against the Mets coming up in June, and I can't do 18 innings, so be ready. And I didn't know what exactly he meant by that. I didn't ask him to clarify. But so I maybe looked over some, not that I didn't know the players very well. I felt like I knew them pretty well, but kind of looked over the Pirates and the Mets. The Pirates are playing the Mets in a doubleheader. And, Cookie, I was like an early stage manager back then. Now, we had a stage manager in the booth at Three River Stadium, but I would do kind of the extra stand in the back of the booth, and just in case I heard Mike or Steve call for something, okay, run down and get me a Coke. You know that press box, of course. We had the TV booths on the 4th level, and then the radio booths on the 3rd level, and that was where the press box was. So you'd run down a flight of steps, and I would run down that flight of steps, grab them a Coke from, you remember Diz Bellows, who was the man in charge?
Like yesterday, I remember Diz Bellows and George. Absolutely.
Get the hell out of the press box, he would yell.
It's game time. They're playing ball.
Yeah. Get the hell out of the press box. And so anyway, I would run down there and grab a Coke. And if there was an official score question, I would run down to the official scorer, whoever that might have been, and ask to clarify it and run up with a note. Maybe I felt like there was something really important that they needed to know, and I'd hand them a note. But I was out of the way. I was in the back of the booth, but willing to help, but I didn't want to be overbearing by any stretch. Anyway, about the 6th inning of this one game, I thought I heard him say, because he and Steve were doing the game on the front row there, and I'm in the back of the booth, and so their backs were to me. But I thought I heard Mike say, when we come back in the 7th inning, Greg Brown will take you through the 7th as the Pirates lead the Mets 3-1. And I wasn't certain about what he was saying, but suddenly I see him take off his headset and stand up and start walking toward me. And as he walks out of the booth, he pats me on the back and he says, "Go get him, kid." And he leaves. And my jaw dropped. And Steve is yelling for me to get to the headset, and so I did. I put the headset on. We come back from a commercial, and lo and behold, I'm calling a Major League Baseball game for the 7th inning, and I would use that tape to then go to WFMJ TV in Youngstown, Ohio, and became a sports anchor. Weekend sports anchor there, and then I parlayed that basically into that job in Buffalo. None of that happens if Mike Lange doesn't decide to take a chance on me, and he got his hand slapped because he didn't seek approval from anyone. He probably knew that had he asked the higher-ups, they would have turned it down. But it's obviously something that meant everything to me.
What's the old saying? Better to ask for forgiveness than for permission, I guess. But
that must have been his adage, because that's what he did.
It's no wonder you guys have been great friends ever since, and I'm sure you're wishing him well in retirement, and I envy you the fact you were in that booth last night. I'll bet it was a hell of a lot of fun.
It was a great time, and it was hilarious to watch Mr. Blast work that room, too, by the way. Steve, by the way, if anybody's looking, I don't know when the Pens play again, Saturday night.
Saturday night.
Just so you know, there's a popcorn shortage at PPG, so you'll have to wait till they get a new supply in. I've never seen anybody work the popcorn like that man.
Did he have a few to go with his? He drinks strictly like Diet Coke, right? So.
Oh yeah. He had to wash it down with something. I'm not sure what it was, but it was a nice program, as he would say. Very nice program. He put in a full shift, as he likes to say, Cookie.
Oh man. Greg, I think we all can agree that we all should be as loved and as lucky as Mike Lange, correct?
Yeah, and he's so sincere about it. He's such a loving person. He's so caring, and you get back what you give, and he's given so much to this town, and he got to know the people, as the gunner told him. You got to get to know people, and he did. I was there one night, Cookie, at a bar many, many years ago with a buddy. You might remember the name Mark Norelli. He worked in the Pirates front office for a number of years. He's now down in Houston. He's bounced around with some major league teams, but he and I were very good friends, and we were at a crowded pub somewhere off Route 51, and Mike, as he used to do quite often, would mosey on up to the bar on the bar stool and just kind of lean over and have a beer and a cigarette. And it was loud and crowded. And I'm off to Mike's right, almost directly behind him. And Mark, my buddy, is to my right, and he's yelling a story to me because it's crowded. And at one point he says, "Brown," he says to me, "Brown, I'm telling you, this guy didn't know whether to," and he cussed, "blank or wind his watch." And suddenly, Mike spins around on his bar stool, puts up his hand, and says, "Wait a minute, what'd you say?" And we stop our conversation, and Mark and I go, "What do you mean? What'd you just say just now?" And Norelli says he didn't know whether to blank or wind his watch. And he turns back around and he says to the bartender, Hey Jim, give me a pen and a napkin, will you?
And he wrote it down.
And we're going crazy. Like, wait a minute, are you going to use this as a call? And he says, I don't know. I'm going to have to clean it up if I do. And we waited weeks and weeks, and we would run to the car after hockey games. Because back then you didn't have internet or whatnot, and you couldn't listen to a game on your phone. We had to get into the car and turn the car on and listen to the post-game show. Mike would wrap things up, and he'd replay some calls. And we went on waiting for this call to come, and it never did. And my buddy Norelli calls me one time and said, can you please call Mike and ask him when he's going to do this? So I called Mike, and I said, hey, Norelli's really bugging me. Hey, he said, tell him to be patient, kid. I might get to it. I don't know. I got a lot of stuff here. Anyway, about a week later, we're at the game. We run again to the car. We turn on the car radio. And lo and behold, he's wrapping things up. And the Penguins take a 2-1 lead in the second period. Oh, down the right wing circle comes Yager. Yager over to Lemieux. Lemieux, he shoots and scores. And Hextall didn't know whether to cry or wind his watch. And I'm telling you, we felt like we were heroes. Because we felt like that was, and how many people in this area feel the same way, that we felt like that's our call. Mike Lange, and that call, a few years later, ESPN did a top 10 ranking of Mike Lange calls, and cry or wind his watch was fourth all time in the Mike Lange playlist. So we feel like we've got a big part in that call.
Well, he told me yesterday when I talked to him for about 45 minutes, he said people would routinely send him suggestions. He'd keep them in a shoebox and review them. And he said, he said, I used a few of them, and it sounds like he used one of yours. Greg, thank you so much for sharing your memories and your experience with Lange and being in the booth last night. Stay well. Look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Cookie, thanks a million for having me on, man. He's the best. Michael's the best.
All right, Pirates announcer Greg Brown sharing his memories on Mike Lange.